Hey Book Nook crew, there are books you expect to be good. You picked them up for a reason. The synopsis sounded interesting, somebody recommended them, the cover got you, whatever. And then there are books that have the audacity to be way better than you were prepared for. That is what we are talking about today. These are 5 books where I started reading, and somewhere along the way I realized, oh, you are good. Now, that doesn't mean every single one of these was perfect. One of them is probably going to be a little bit polarizing because I already know some readers are going to say it had entirely too much going on. And you know what? They might be right. I still had a good time. So let's get into 5 books that had absolutely no business being this good.
Slow, turn the page, find your peace in this space, honey and prose. Welcome home.
Let's start with Plus Size Player by Danielle Allen. And one of the first things I loved about this book was Nina, because Nina was confident. She wasn't walking around waiting for somebody to tell her that she was beautiful. She wasn't apologizing for taking up space. She knew who she was, and I really appreciated that, because sometimes when we get plus size women in romance, the entire story can become about her size. She doesn't think anybody wants her. She has to learn that she deserves love. The man has to somehow convince her that he really is attracted to her. And that wasn't what I got from Nina. Nina already had confidence. And Russ was attracted to her. Period. There wasn't this feeling that we're supposed to applaud him for overlooking the fact that she was plus size. There was nothing for him to overlook. He liked that woman, and I loved that because it allowed their relationship to actually be about them instead of the book constantly stopping to remind me, hey, did you know she's plus sized? Yes. I saw the title. Can we get back to the romance? And the book did. There was something really refreshing about watching a plus size woman be desired without her body being treated like the obstacle she has to overcome before the story can happen. Nina brought confidence to the page, and Russ met her there. I wasn't expecting that to be the thing that made me enjoy the book so much, but it absolutely did. And all I am going to say, if you read this book, you already know, is the restaurant scene. Next up is Frenemies with Benefits by Synithia Williams. Now, this one got me with the old high school friend situation because he had liked her. She just didn't know he liked her. In fact, she thought pretty much the opposite. And I love a story where 2 people have completely different memories of what was happening between them. Because she's walking around thinking, oh, he couldn't stand me. Meanwhile, he's probably thinking, woman, I have been liking you forever. And that dynamic alone was fun. But what really got me was the way he showed up for her. Because attraction is cute. Chemistry is cute. The flirting, the tension, all of that stuff is cute. But let me see what you do when somebody actually needs you. That's when I started paying attention. And he swooped in and supported her. He didn't just talk a good game. He showed up. It was almost like any issue that she had at her bed and breakfast, he was there for. I think he was her florist initially. I think he was her florist, but he turned into everything. And while he was busy being there for her, He stole her heart and mine a little bit too, because apparently that is all it takes with me. Be dependable, show up, don't make everything harder than it needs to be. I'm sold. This was one of those romances where I expected to have fun with the premise, but I ended up liking the actual relationship more than I expected, because there was history there. There was misunderstanding, there was attraction, but underneath it all, there was genuine care, and that made the romance work for me. Now, let's talk about the love lyric by Kristina Forrest. First of all, I accidentally read book 3 first. I mean, I didn't know. I just picked the book up and started reading it. And somewhere along the way, I realized, oh, there were books before this one. Well, we're here now. And thankfully, I still really enjoyed it. One of the things I loved most was Iris and her sisters. I love their relationship because even though there's obviously a romance at the center of the story, Iris still felt connected to this bigger family world. And I love when a romance doesn't make everybody else in the main character's life disappear. She still has people. She still has family. Those relationships still matter. And then we have Iris and Angel, who are supposed to be professional. That is the arrangement. That is what they are supposed to be doing, working. Except Love said, no, I don't think so. And then the tension between them was so good because you knew that they were not supposed to go there. They knew they were not supposed to go there. Everybody understands the assignment, and yet here we are. And I love that kind of a romantic tension when it works because it creates a constant question of how long are y'all really going to pretend this thing ain't happening? And how long are we going to keep calling this professional? Because I have eyes. So between the relationship with Iris and her sisters and the tension between Iris and Angel, I ended up getting much more emotionally invested in this book than I expected. And the funniest part is I did it completely out of order. So apparently, sometimes you can accidentally enter a series through the back door and still have a wonderful time. Would I recommend doing that intentionally? No. For this series, you could, because each book I think is about each individual sister and their story. Now, we are changing directions completely. My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan or Oyinkan Braithwaite. The title tells you exactly what kind of situation we're dealing with. One sister is a serial killer, which is already enough. But what I loved about this book was that underneath that wild premise, it really became a story about what one sister would do for another. Even when that sister is crazy. I'm sorry, there is no delicate way to put that. Your sister keeps killing people. At some point, we have to call a thing a thing. But that's what made the book so interesting for me, because it puts this relationship between the sisters in such an extreme situation that you start thinking about loyalty in a completely different way. How far do you go for your sister? What do you overlook? What do you protect? Where does loyalty end? And what happens when loving somebody starts asking you to participate in things you know are wrong? That was much more interesting to me than simply, oh, her sister kills men. Because after the shock of the premise wears off, the relationship is what keeps the story going. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. It's dark. It's strange. It's funny in places where you're probably sitting there thinking, should I be laughing at this? But underneath all of that, it's about these two sisters and this incredibly complicated bond between them. And I did not expect the sisterhood to be the thing that I walked away thinking about. Now we need to talk about The Secret World of Maggie Gray. And I already know this one may be polarizing, because some of you are going to read this book and say, Denise, this book is all over the place. And I am not necessarily going to argue with you, but hear me out. Magical HBCU, shenanigans, generational trauma, and a talking cat named Quan. What do you want from me? I had a good time. This book has a lot happening. There are definitely moments where you can feel different pieces competing for space. There's the magical world, there's the HBCU setting, there's the family history. Then there's the generational trauma. There are all these different things happening around Maggie, and yes, I can absolutely understand a reader saying, this needs to be tighter. This needs more focus. There is too much going on. I get it. But sometimes a book can be a little bit chaotic, and the chaos works for you. And this one worked for me. Part of that was just the creativity of it. I mean, a magical HBCU, you already have my attention. But then you start adding in all these little strange elements, and this world feels familiar in some ways and completely bizarre in others. And then Quan, the talking cat. I am sorry, but once you give me a talking cat named Quan, I'm at least staying long enough to see what Quan has to say. And what I appreciated about this book is that even with all the magical shenanigans, there was still something heavier underneath. There's generational trauma here. There are things being carried through family. So the book can be fun and strange and a little all over the place while still dealing with something serious underneath. Now, did every piece come together perfectly for me? No. And I think this is probably the book on the list where some of you are going to disagree with me the most. But did I enjoy myself? Absolutely. Sometimes I don't need a book to be flawless. Sometimes I needed to give me something I haven't seen before. And The Secret World of Maggie Gray definitely did that. And I think that's actually what connects all 5 of these books for me. They didn't all impress me for the same reason. Plus Size Player gave me a heroine whose confidence I loved, a man who was attracted to her without the book treating her body like some obstacle he had to overcome. Frenemies with Benefits gave me history, misunderstanding, and a man who actually knew how to show up. The Love Lyric gave me sisterhood, and that we absolutely should not be doing this, romantic tension. My Sister the Serial Killer took us through this outrageous premise and made us think about sisterhood and loyalty. And The Secret World of Maggie Gray gave me magical HBCU, chaos, and a talking cat named Quan. None of those things are the same reading experience, but every one of them gave me something that made me sit up and say, okay, you're doing more than I thought you were going to do. And I love when a book does that, because sometimes the books you end up loving the most aren't necessarily the ones that look perfect on paper. They're the ones that give you that one thing you didn't know you needed. And apparently, sometimes that thing is a talking cat. So now I want to know, what book had absolutely no business being as good as it was? The one you picked up expecting a nice little read and then were suddenly invested. Put it in the comments, because you already know I'm always looking for another book to add to my list. And If you like book conversations that are a little opinionated, a little messy, and a lot of fun, make sure you subscribe and join the Book Nook crew. Now, go drink something warm, read something good, and I will see you in the next chapter.